Estimating the time required for electrical work is crucial for project planning and bidding. There are rules of thumb that can guide estimations for conduit installation, wire pulling, and termination. For running conduit, a general guideline is to allocate approximately 1 minute per foot for rigid or intermediate metal conduit, often abbreviated as IMC installation. For electrical metallic tubing, referred to as EMT, a typical estimate is 0.5 minutes per foot. When working with flexible conduit, plan for about 0.25 minutes per foot. These estimates are based on ideal conditions and may need adjustments based on the complexity of the installation environment. The time needed for pulling wire depends on the type of wiring being installed. Single-phase wire usually requires around 1 minute per foot for pulling. Three-phase wire, which is heavier and more complex to manage, typically needs an estimated 1.5 minutes per foot. These estimates account for the physical effort and coordination needed to pull wires through conduit runs. Terminating wires at boxes also requires specific time allowances. For a single gang box, allocate about 2 minutes for termination. A 2-gang box typically needs around 3 minutes. When terminating wires at a 4-gang box, plan for approximately 5 minutes. These estimates include the time for stripping wires, making connections, and ensuring secure and compliant terminations. To illustrate how these rules of thumb work in practice, consider an example project that involves running 50 feet of rigid conduit, pulling 30 feet of single-phase wire, and terminating 5 single-gang boxes. Firstly, calculate the conduit installation time. Since rigid conduit takes about 1 minute per foot, 50 feet of conduit would require 50 feet multiplied by 1 minute per foot, which equals 50 minutes. Secondly, estimate the time for pulling wire. The project involves 30 feet of single-phase wire, which takes about 1 minute per foot, resulting in 30 feet multiplied by 1 minute per foot or 30 minutes. Thirdly, calculate the termination time. The project includes 5 single-gang boxes, each requiring 2 minutes for termination, so 5 boxes multiplied by 2 minutes per box equals 10 minutes. Adding these individual time estimates together yields the total estimated time for the project. In this case, 50 minutes for conduit, 30 minutes for wire pulling, and 10 minutes for termination gives a total estimated time of 90 minutes. While these rules of thumb provide a helpful starting point, it's important to consider factors that could affect the actual time required for a project. These factors may include the complexity of the conduit run, such as the number of bends or offsets, which can increase installation time. The presence of obstructions or difficult access points can also slow down the installation process. Similarly, the type and size of wire being pulled, as well as the number of conductors, can impact wire pulling time. More complex terminations, such as those involving multiple wires or specialized equipment, may require additional time. It is also important to account for breaks, meetings, and material handling during the project. These non-productive activities can add to the overall time required to complete the work. By considering these factors and making appropriate adjustments to the initial estimates, more accurate project timelines and bids can be developed. The complexity of the conduit run affects installation time in several ways. Firstly, the number of bends and offsets in a conduit run can significantly increase the time required for installation. Each bend or offset requires careful measurement, cutting, and fitting of conduit, which adds to the overall labor time. Secondly, the presence of obstructions or difficult access points can also slow down the installation process. Navigating around obstacles or working in tight spaces can make it more challenging to install conduit, requiring more time and effort. Thirdly, the type of conduit being used can also impact installation time. Rigid conduit, for example, is more difficult to work with than EMT or flexible conduit, requiring more specialized tools and techniques. The type and size of wire being pulled can also affect wire pulling time. Firstly, heavy gauge wires are more difficult to pull than lighter gauge wires, requiring more force and effort. Secondly, the number of conductors being pulled at the same time can also impact wire pulling time. Pulling multiple conductors simultaneously can create more friction and resistance, making it more difficult to pull the wires through the conduit. Thirdly, the type of lubricant used can also affect wire pulling time. Using a high-quality lubricant can reduce friction and make it easier to pull wires through the conduit. More complex terminations, such as those involving multiple wires or specialized equipment, may require additional time. Firstly, terminations that involve multiple wires can be more time-consuming than terminations that involve a single wire. Each wire must be carefully stripped, connected, and secured, which can add to the overall labor time. Secondly, terminations that involve specialized equipment, such as connectors or lugs, may require additional training and expertise. Using specialized equipment can also be more time-consuming than using standard termination methods. Thirdly, the type of termination being used can also impact termination time. Screw terminals, for example, are typically faster to terminate than crimp terminals with solder connections. Brakes, meetings, and material handling are non-productive activities that can add to the overall time required to complete a project. Thirdly, breaks and meetings can take up a significant amount of time, especially on larger projects. It's important to factor in time for breaks, lunch, and project meetings when estimating the total time required for a project. Secondly, material handling can also add to the overall time required for a project. Moving materials from storage to the work site can be time-consuming, especially if the materials are heavy or bulky. Thirdly, waiting for materials to be delivered or for other trades to complete their work can also delay a project. It's important to coordinate with other trades and to ensure that materials are delivered on time to avoid delays. When bidding on a project, it's important to consider not only the direct labor costs but also the indirect costs associated with the project. Indirect costs may include things like insurance, taxes, and overhead. It's also important to factor in a profit margin to ensure that the project is profitable. By carefully considering all of these factors, contractors can develop more accurate project timelines and bids. Remember, the rules of thumb are a starting point. Experience and job-specific knowledge are key to refining these estimates. Accurate estimates lead to successful project completion and client satisfaction.